group. So it may or may not be addressed, but I still want to put it out there for people because I think we may miss some very qualified and skilled people who've been in this field for a long time that will not be able to provide their services here, even if it's temporarily.
So if you had to recommend a committee, where do you think that would fall under? Certification exemption kind of thing?
Yes. I think it would fall under an exemption.
Would school-sponsored events also be considered a loophole in terms of the spirit of the law and the way that that law was intended?
Yes, it's very ambiguous. It doesn't have a definition. My opinion, I don't know anybody else.
Gary? I'm just checking. Okay. Another question that I was asked, can the task force work to bridge the gap between SLIC and DSPS? I don't know if that is in our, we can talk about, again, it goes back to that enforcement piece. All right, another question I was asked at the April meeting, should K-12 certified interpreters be getting their DSPS license? Should K-12 certified, and certified is capitalized, and I think that's your point about the PIPA 4.0. Should they be getting their DSPS license? Again, we have just identified that as a loophole, and so we would argue that what? Oh.
So one situation that's come up with a loophole. A person that's called, I guess, call themselves deaf enough. They're skilled with speaking and they take the test and pass it. Is that considered a loophole?
So do you mean that the deaf person also can speak for themselves? Is that what you mean?
So the CDI doesn't typically use it.
They're just working solo.
They're working solo, they're not using a hearing team, and they go ahead and speak for themselves. Is that considered a loophole or not?
That's fascinating. Does that happen?
Yeah, someone did tell me that that has occurred.
I think worth exploring on the CDI subcommittee.
Okay.
All right, another question that was asked me of this task force is why are we accepting this outcome of qualified interpreters leaving the field? All the timelines are different. They don't line up. How are we just sitting back and letting this lapse occur? I try not to feel hurt by the one, considering how many hours of my life I've already invested to this process. I think a big part of this task force is to try to address that very problem. We're not just sitting back as a state. By the numbers of people that we have attending, a lot of people are very invested in this. So I don't know how else to answer that question other than what we are trying to do right now. Amy, you wanted to add?
I think part of it is when we see the gap of the people can only have their widow for 5 years before they don't get the full cycle,
Right.
so they lose a year. Hopefully that year would make a difference for people, and when we met on our enforcement committee, we did take a look at part of the law and try to get creative to see that piece
Good.
be addressed. So I don't know if that calms anyone to know that people are addressing that.
Absolutely.
I think 6 years, if you ask many of the deaf community members, were frustrated with seeing interpreters who keep going on and on and on and never getting qualified. One of the reasons the law has a limit is because they want to encourage people to be certified. And so 6 years was given to be a reasonable amount of time for someone to be able to do that, minus the current RED standing. And so I would like to see, again, to encourage the deaf community members, your voice is critical to us being successful in this process, to make sure that all the stakeholders are being addressed. Please consider being a member on one of the subcommittees. We need your feedback.
And interpreters too that are feeling that they're not being
Yes.
represented. I mean, please, we don't want to miss anyone in this process. But we need your participation, and so that would be very helpful. So just making sure. What is the time frame after said revisions that get submitted, that they be placed into effect? What does that process look like? So like I said, this summer, we're going into subcommittees. It's hopefully that we will have our ideas by September, working with the LRB to help us with the actual writing. If we decide that we want to move forward with proposing some changes and going around the state, that will start in the fall, and hopefully have something done before the next legislative cycle. Go ahead, Amy.
One more item I'd like to see looked at under exemptions. If that falls under certification, great. If it doesn't, maybe it's under enforcement, I'm not sure where. But if we have really long trials, in the law, it says that a person can be granted approval to work in the state of Wisconsin temporarily for like 14 days total, something like that. Sometimes they go longer than that. And I wonder if there's a place to just add in there something like, or until the completion of the legal event, or something to that effect, or the completion of that particular event. I just want to take a closer look at that, because we would end up in the middle of the trial having to switch out an interpreter.
Yeah.
And that makes it very difficult. It ends up being more than one, because we don't have enough qualified interpreters in the state.
Okay. Because I know in that the administrative rules, there is that process for in-state asking for those exemptions.
Right.
But for out-of-state, it's a little bit more limiting. That's a good point. Okay. Okay, so I think I'm just gonna stop here. And I would like to give folks an opportunity to ask questions, and maybe hear from some people that we have not heard from, just to give people equal opportunity. Again, and if I'm not able to get your comments or questions, please write them down on an index card and hand them to my friend Gina here. So I see Tom. Tom, would you like to?
This is Tom Benzinger. When we're talking about the RID membership as part of licensure, but the problem with that I see is that RID doesn't recognize the BEI currently, which means we would have to change part of the law if we have BEI come to the state. So I would like that to be included now before having to do that at another legislative cycle. Another thing, is there a list of interpreters who are DSPS licensed? Because we cannot find that information readily available to the public. Because it would be nice to know, especially what areas they're from in the state. So that would be good to know, to have that list. Renewal of membership for licensure and renewal of licensure. You know, it's interesting because when I get a new license, it's just a paper cutout that I have to use. So DSPS should have a more professional looking license rather than this printable cutout thing that I carry around in my pocket. a K-12 environment would use a EIPA or DPI licensed interpreter, but they should be using DSPS licensed interpreters. How do we justify that?
Okay, that was a lot, Tom. It's good. Your question about finding a list or directory of interpreters, we have addressed it as a task force. That is a DSPS issue and not, I don't know if the task force can address that. And so I think, again, this goes back to WAD and the deaf community and the interpreting community saying that your website is cumbersome, it is not easily accessible. So we have identified that as an issue, but I don't know if that's something that we can address. That, again, sending letters, contacting DSPS about how unfriendly and not helpful their DSPS website, I think, is something that I would encourage people to do if that is truly the issue. Regarding the piece of paper and wrapping up in tape, again, I would to let DSPS know that, and I'll just let you know RID is doing the same thing. And so I would say have it on your phone, right? And here it is, show your license, there you go. With technology, that might be an easier
There's
way.
my RID card.
There it is, but they're changing it. They're going to change it. They are now, you have to print it yourself. It just, yes, I just found that out yesterday. Everyone's saving money, saving money. And the question about IEP, the way that we understand the FAQs and DSPS and DPI, it was the understanding that if a parent needs interpreting services for an IEP, that it would be a DSPS interpreter. If it is the child that needs the services, a DPI licensed interpreter can do it. So that's already been stated and clarified in the FAQs. Again, that's something that the subcommittee will make sure that, again, gets reiterated, clarified, agreed upon, that kind of stuff. Did I miss a question? Anybody else want to add? Did I answer all your questions? Okay. I see Margaret and then Henry.
I think there's another conflict that needs to be addressed, probably by the DSPS and DPI committee. And that is that DEI defines the work of a basic interpreter as being K-12 and post-secondary interpreting, which is a direct violation of the laws of the state of Wisconsin in terms of DPI license.
Henry.
I wanted to add upon the RID membership being required for licensure. So myself being a pre-certified interpreter, I put a lot of money towards RID and I put much less than most of my colleagues. And really there's been nothing given back to them. But to give a more troubling example of RID membership and why it's required, RID is a 501c3. They're a nonprofit organization. They're not allowed to make any political statements, and that was violated last summer by the President Dawn Whitched. Right before the national conference down in New Orleans, the governor of New Orleans passed a bill regarding gay marriage or same-sex marriage, and the president of RID came out saying RID as an organization is against that. Now, my political beliefs have nothing to do with this, but what is important is if I disagree with the president of RID, meaning I agree with the elected governor of Alabama or of Louisiana, I'm forced to be a part of an organization that is spewing out political beliefs and trying to sway the public. And I think overall there's just been a lack of trust with RID. So I wanted to emphasize that moving forward with the task force.
We will, so again, we have people taking the minutes, and so I think we'll process these comments. Did I miss some? Oh, Kaylin.
I just needed a clarification with the fact that, obviously it's known that ODHH is gonna be taking on the TEP and the basic, and they're waiting for the approval from DSPS to do so. When that approval comes in, does that also mean at that time, the advanced and the master's is gonna be accepted as equivalent, even though it's not being tested in Wisconsin? Will we then adopt the advanced and master's as equivalent to the NIC at that time?
that's their intention, but again, he could not give a definitive answer. And correct me if so we'll document that and seek clarification again. Amy?
Caitlin, are you asking also that the certification committee just decide whether or not they can write that into the law, stating that if it were to be accepted on a basic level, the license would automatically accept it as an equivalent? Is that what you're really
Yes.
asking?
If you're gonna accept the bottom two levels, the top two levels should also be apparently adopted as well.
Gotcha.
And I do believe that that is what ODHH is intending to do, that they're still in that
Right, and it's how we write it into this potentially revamped.
potential. Yep. All right, one more question or comment someone's burning to share? Yes.
In K through 12, and DPI used to do a thing where if you didn't have your DPI license by like September or December, the state or the federal government wouldn't reimburse the school district for your salary. Is there some way to put something like that into this law that says places that hire interpreters that don't have a license will get penalized somehow?
So that was talked about by Barbara. Remember at the February task force meeting, was it February? Where she had mentioned about that reimbursement for K-12 interpreters. It was a little bit more general, but the interpreters fall under that. So, I mean, that is worth exploring. Thank you. Erin?
Tell me if this is appropriate or not. I can address that related to post-secondary institutions and the Wisconsin Association on Higher Education and how that's handled.
Sure.
As far as post-secondary, is this?
Go ahead.
Okay. So, it used to be that it was just, you had to hire a qualified interpreter. So the law can punish a licensed interpreter, but there's not much that they can do for an unlicensed interpreter. However, it can make a complaint against a college or other institution who's covered under ADA or 504. You make that complaint with the Office of Civil Rights. So then it's an OCR complaint. And then the college has to explain to the Office of Civil Rights how they hired a qualified interpreter that was not licensed. And they lose. So there is something very similar to that. It's just a little gray and you have to understand that law.
So if more places knew that they potentially could fall under punishment from that kind of gray law that people don't know about, maybe they wouldn't hire interpreters that don't have license.
Yes, and I said gray law, it's not a gray law, it's very black and white, but the problem isn't with the Wisconsin interpreter law. You have no recourse there. Your problem isn't with your local DA, although you could handle it that way. The problem for the institution and hiring entity that you're talking about is an investigation made by the Office of Civil Rights.
I was also told that. So some questions have been also asked about agencies that hire people that are not licensed. And it was recommended that we educate the community about contacting the Better Business Bureau. That would be a way to hold agencies or organizations that are violating or hiring people that are not qualified. So that's just another thing that we can explore this summer. Okay. If you have questions on your index card, please pass them up here. I will get a lot of this information out on the website soon. The next time that we will host a community meeting will be in September. And again, you will get information about where that's going to be located. Any other additional comments from the task force? We know what we're doing? Kinda? Yes?
So do you want us to create because remember we were going to, create a summary of the meeting today. Do you want me to make that? Be a follow-up.
Yeah, you and I will. Amy?
Not expected to video or some.
No, I'm just gonna ask for,
A general summary. of
Yes.
What we've covered, what we're doing. what we're
yes. Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Good night. Rest.